I wanted to die in combat. I wanted it. I wanted to become a SEAL, go to war, and die in a hail of gunfire. That's what I wanted.
Like, before you even signed on the dotted line, you had decided this is where it ends.
Not because I'm suicidal, but because I viewed it as like the ultimate, what's the word? Like a recreation of myself. Truthfully, my mom was very for it in that way that she understands that, her son could be going in harm's way. So she's not like, boy, this is the best thing ever, but very proud. She's the one that told me to go talk to Susan's brothers. I mean, she knows she played a role in this. And I think that ultimately by that point, I think my mom was happy to see that her son had kind of found a purpose. I was very aimless and screwing off in high school. And then, I find a way to be a good student. She's starting to see that. But this was probably the first time that she was seeing her son really make an adult decision. And whether or not she genuinely wanted me to serve, I don't know. But she was just proud and happy for me. My dad had a very different reaction to it. There's no doubt that he is proud now and was proud to a degree at the time. But I think from his perspective, it felt like, what if you don't make it? Then what? Which is totally sensible.
Yes.
Because for those that don't know, if you enlist in the Navy to go try out for the SEAL teams, if you don't make it, which statistically you won't, you are now an undesignated, therefore you don't have a job. You're an undesignated sailor in the Navy who makes the lowest amount possible, and there's really no way to get promoted. You're stuck in your contract for 4 years.
Yeah.
And so imagine being a college degree 21-year-old who's doing what an 18-year-old with no college degree would be doing in the Navy. It's like you're screwing yourself for those first few years of your career, And I think my dad fixated on, not you're going to fail. That's not what he was getting at. It was more, he's very pragmatic. He's very sensible. He's rooted in let's make good decisions, which is a good thing to do. But to become a SEAL, it's not a good decision to try out because everything says it's a bad decision. You're probably not going to make it. And even if you do make it, you're probably going to get killed or hurt. And if you live through the teams, you're probably going to be divorced. You're probably going to be miserable. And you're probably going to have like chronic injuries. So there's lots of reasons not to do it. But it draws people that can look past that stuff and say, I'm still going to do it. And that's not who my dad is. And it's exactly who I am. And so we were very at odds with this decision. And, before I told him about my decision to to try out for the SEAL teams, he and I had really connected because I was going to UMass Boston for those few semesters. Granted, I went back to UMass Amherst, but when I was at UMass Boston, his work, the Boston Globe, was actually across the street from the campus. And so during my lunch break, when I'm like this model student now, which was making my dad so proud, we'd go get lunch together. We'd go see. We went to Kansas City together to go watch the opening day of the Red Sox game together. It's like very close, almost like a rekindling of our relationship from the divorce when I was 13 to 18, 19. We're spending a bunch of time together. And then I go back to UMass Amherst, and then I graduate, and I break the news about the SEAL teams, and it kind of screwed up our relationship in a pretty big way, my dad and I. I think, again, just he didn't want to see his son get hurt. He didn't want to see his son, be stuck in the Navy with a college degree and 4 years of enlistment ahead of him. And so he was kind of too focused on the downsides of the decision or the risks of the decision. And I was like, I know these are risks. I'm aware of these risks. I'm the one taking this chance. But I need you to see that I'm somebody that has the drive to do this. I don't have a track record to prove it, but you know me. I'm somebody that can really put my head down and struggle when I need to, and I think I can do this. And what I really wanted from my dad was just some level of, I think you can do this. I mean, again, he didn't have to do that, but that's what I wanted from him, and I became very upset that he didn't give it to me. And I think that by the time I shipped out for boot camp, it really had soured our relationship in a pretty big way. I think that the intentions were good from him, genuine concern and worry for his son, but I took it very personally. And it actually, I will say that when I was going through SEAL training, there were times where I actually was on the verge of quitting, but it was so hard and miserable. And I would think about, I can never face my dad if I quit this training. That would be the most embarrassing thing I can think of. The most like, I told you so, and I couldn't have it. I could not have that happen to me. So in a way, and I actually told my dad this, he knows this, And we got in a big fight a couple years after this about the whole thing. And I said, I was like, in a weird way, you have provided me with the most profound motivation by basically doubting me in a loving way with the best of intentions. But your doubts actually definitely fueled me to keep going. There were other things too, but that was a big one. And so in a way, I'm thankful for it.
Wow. I can relate to that. That's very similar story. But back to you, it sounds like the former SEALs that you had met with as a 19-year-old played a big impact. What was it that really, with all the other places you could go, you could be infantry, you could be Green Beret, you could be force reconnaissance. What year is this, by the way?
I met them in 2008.
Okay, so the war had been going on for 7 years.
Yeah.
And why, did you explore any other options, or was it just
a little bit?
This is where I'm going.
Truthfully, I was pretty big on a video game at the time called SOCOM US Navy SEALs on PlayStation 2. Great game. And so my understanding of special operations was the best in the business are the SEALs. And I think that could still be true. I don't know. I'm not going to say that because your audience is every branch. But at the time, I was very enamored with SEALs in general. And so to me, it was obvious they were the top position I could get into, the top special ops. And so I'm a person that once I've decided I want something, I actually don't want to go look at other options. I just want to do the thing I want to do, whether I'm right or wrong. And once I've identified my goal, it's like I don't want any outside influence. I just want to do it. And so I kind of had tunnel vision with the SEAL teams. But to your point, I think that there's truth in, I wanted to serve. That's true. But I could have served in any part of the military I wanted to, and I would have accomplished that goal. So that can't be the reason I went for the SEAL teams. On some level, it's ego. Like the SEAL teams are the rock stars of the military. At least at the time, they certainly felt that way. Actually, this was pre-Bin Laden raid. So this is actually, they were super cool, but not as cool as they got. But they were still very cool at the time. And I think that I really, by the time I was making that decision to actually go and give this thing a shot, my progression was, screwed up high school by being an idiot and getting in trouble and fighting and drinking, screwed up college for really the same reason. But then it's like, I've got my life back on track. I'm getting good grades. I got my, job. I've gotten back into UMass Amherst. I've met Amanda. Like I'm on a track here. And I loved the idea of almost like the final form I was going to take was the Navy SEAL version of me, where it was the complete metamorphosis from complete up to, upstanding citizen who's got a purpose in life. And so I knew that if I could become a SEAL, not a soul was going to focus on all the shit that I had done wrong. Like people in my life, they were going to say, that's John the Navy SEAL. So I didn't become a SEAL to get that notoriety. I joined for many reasons, but that's definitely a part of it. If it was deciding between the branches, I would say ego and vanity and all that stuff played a huge role. But it's also like I wanted to go to war. And since we're getting deep anyways, I had this weird fascination, and I think this is not as uncommon as I think it's not uncommon. Maybe it is. I wanted to die in combat. I wanted it. I wanted to become a SEAL, go to war, and die in a hail of gunfire. That's what I wanted.
Before you even signed on the dotted line, you had decided this is where it ends. Not because I'm suicidal, but because I viewed it as like the ultimate, what's the word? Like a recreation of myself. I'd become like the best possible thing I could ever be. In my mind at the time, is like a hero who that people would miss and appreciate, because I just felt like I fucked up so much at such a young age. I didn't really. At the time, it felt like a lot. But it's like, I'm a smart guy. I could have gotten great grades, probably could have gotten into a great school, probably could have gotten a great job, if that stuff's good or whatever. And it just felt like the SEAL teams and frankly, death in war I told my wife this, and she was like freaked out by it. When I became a SEAL, it was even worse for her, because she knew my first deployment was to Afghanistan. I only did 2 deployments, so I went to Afghanistan, and I was like giddy about it. And I think that she was like, dude, don't die on deployment. Like, don't do that. Don't go there with the intent of dying in combat. And truthfully, yeah, dude, it was weird. You told her that? When did you?
I was a fucking head case. Still am.
Oh, man.
But she, Yeah, I told her, so I go through BUD/S. I'm sure we'll go through the whole story, but I go through BUD/S. I go to SEAL Team 2 on the East Coast. And when we checked in, we didn't know where we were gonna go. It was like, we might go to Afghanistan, we might not, we don't know. And then when the word came in, kind of last minute, which I think is somewhat par for the course for a lot of these deployments, it was like a celebration. I mean, I'm sure you can relate to this. To find out we were going to go to the show. We're going to go to war. We're going to actually go to war. And I couldn't help it. I told Amanda I was excited because of the prospect of being killed in combat.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm sorry to say that to you, but it's real. And that's where I'm at. And it definitely upset her.
I'll bet.
But it's like, here we are. I'm going. I would say, though, that right before I deployed, and I'm kind of jumping around here, but I actually did admit to her, like the night before I was supposed to leave for Germany, I was like, you know what? Now I'm scared.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.